In this video we're going to move on from where we left off, which was here, the results tab of the co-integration screen. At this point, if a user finds a pair he wishes to continue to follow, he's carried out his graphical analysis, he's looked at the data and he likes what he sees, he then only has to click on watch, and here we're getting the alert that this pair, BOKAFUR, are going to be added to the watch list. What does this mean? The watch list is a container where a user can put his entire inventory of pairs he wishes to continue to follow. After that point, if he wants to define more detailed classifications, for example, he wants to create a portfolio of only pairs in the basic industries sector, that can be done. But the watch list itself, which we'll move to here, is a catch-all. Now these are 10 items that I'd already moved here from the scan we were just looking at. To see that BOKA pair, we have to click on refresh. You'll notice at the bottom the count is at 10. By clicking on refresh, you'll see whatever you've added. The count's moved to 11, and you can see number 3 on the list there is BOKAFUR. On the watch list, we have the same graphical tools that can be used to look at each pair. So here, for example, we can look at the z-score of BOKAFUR. We can line up MACD technical analysis graph if we want next to it, and from time to time, whenever the page is refreshed, and that's something that can be done automatically by clicking this case, and the time increment that it runs on is controlled here. From time to time, with different refreshes, a user can check what's going on, what progress, or indeed if the pair is still co-integrated, what has happened in the interim since the last refresh. Single items can also be followed right here under the items watch list. I'm going to show you how that's done. You go back to the co-integration screen, you move to symbols, and you just select something you want to look at. For example, Rio Tinto. You click watch, OK, and you confirm by going back to the items watch list, clicking on refresh, and you get a pair. You get a single item. You can change the resolution of that item if, for example, you want to look at a couple of technical indicators. This is at the daily level. If you wanted to change that to, let's say, the 30-minute level, you click on refresh after changing the data interval. After a pause, the data is updated. You reselect the row and you see what it looks like. So let's return to the pairs. That same feature does exist right here, where you just change the data interval, click refresh, and you'll have an update. But at this point, I want to show you the main reason you have a watch list, and that's to carry out back tests. When I ran the scan earlier, it was interesting to see this pair came up, Rolls-Royce MTU Aero engines. These are two major suppliers of aircraft engines to both the commercial and defense sectors. They've got a lot of history. For people like me who made model airplanes when they were small boys, Rolls-Royce used to make the Merlin engine, which powered the Hurricane, powered the Spitfire and the Hurricane, and it was also used to upgrade the P-51 Mustang, an American fighter. And MTU Aero, at that time, they were famous for supplying an engine that powered the Messerschmitt Me-109. So in some ways, it's no surprise to see that they are still rivals and are co-integrated several decades on, because they're in the same business. So they seemed a good pair to run a back test on. So we can look at that. Here's a z-score for the pair. You can take a look at their index prices and the nominal spread between them. A user might look at this and say, okay, I want to set up a back test that looks at the performance of a simple trading rule. We go into a position when the standard deviation is at plus or minus 1.5 standard deviations, and we'll exit when it reverts fully to the mean at 0. And for good measure, we'll put in a stop loss of a standard deviation of 2.4. Now to set that all up, you click on test. Dialog box appears. There are a couple of things to notice. The first is that the starting amounts here are governed by two things. Our default for the Y, which is the dependent variable is always set at 5,000, whatever your base currency is. In this case it's the dollar. And the X amount is a function of the beta. Beta is the slope of the line that you get after running a co-integrating equation. At this end of the dialog box is a reset amounts button. This simply means, if it's clicked, that every signal, every new transaction restarts with this starting amount here. If it's unclicked, you're in effect running a cumulative test, where if you've made profits, those will be added in to the starting amount, and if you've made losses, those will be taken out. Now, to set up our test, we said for the entry criteria, we're going to use, for everything, we're just going to use a z-score. Now, it's important to note here, the strategy says buy Rolls-Royce, sell MTX, and below that, the opposite, sell Rolls-Royce, buy MTX. Rolls-Royce in this case is the Y variable. When you're buying the Y, the residuals are in negative territory. So here the rule you want to enter is to buy when standard deviation is less than minus 1.5. And then you're going to enter the mirror entry for sell Rolls-Royce. So we start off, we click on entry criteria, select z-score, click add. We want to put in when the z-score is less than minus 1.5. We're going to buy Rolls-Royce and sell MTX. Our stop loss criteria we said was minus 2.5, which will probably suggest the relationship is breaking down. And our target criteria, again, we use the z-score when the z-score rises, as it did here, above 0. That is, it's reverted fully to the mean. On the other side, you enter exactly the same criteria, but in mirror form. We set a stop loss of 2.5 and minus 2.5, and again a target of 0. In this case it's going to be falling less than 0. A useful feature you can do here is to save this strategy for future use. I'll just call this a simple Z and click OK, and it appears in the existing strategies. Now at this point you just need to run your test, and after a few moments you get an alert that says the backtest has been completed. There it is, and you can start looking at your results. Now the results look fantastic. There's an entire section in our documentation that talks about this, and it's to be found under the outer sample testing. It's important to take a good look at this, because these are cherry-picked scans. This is a form of curve fitting, and what the user is really going to need to see is how often these things fail. And to do that, you either have to have live data coming in or do an out-of-sample test, and we describe that in the documentation. But to finish up here, you can see graphically how these trades would have been entered. You can look at the trading results, and if you want, you can reset the test, and you can change the strategy. And that's it for now. In the next test, we'll look a little bit more at moving these pairs onto portfolios. Bye bye for now.